What if the reason you're still searching is because you refuse to believe it's already yours? You've read the books, watched the videos, and tried the techniques, yet here you are, still searching. Why? Because deep down, you've been living as the seeker, not the manifester. Neville Goddard said it best: assumption ends the search. Until you assume, you'll keep chasing answers outside of you, but the moment you live in the end, everything shifts. The search dissolves, the restlessness fades, and you finally step into being. What if the very thing you've been searching for was never missing in the first place? He had read every book he could get his hands on, from self-help classics to the latest manifestation manuals. His shelves were overflowing. Each title promised the missing piece, the secret shortcut, the formula that would finally unlock abundance. But every time he closed one, the same quiet emptiness returned. It was as if he were stuck on a carousel, endlessly spinning yet never arriving. Maybe you've felt that too, watching video after video, scribbling down affirmations, highlighting passages in Neville Goddard's works, hoping that one more idea would make it click. But instead of clarity, you ended up with overwhelm. The mind filled with techniques, yet the heart still whispered, something is missing. The seeker's treadmill was running, and you couldn't seem to step off. It's funny how the search often starts with excitement, the thrill of discovery, the belief that this new method might be the one, but slowly, that excitement turns into fatigue. Every technique feels like déjà vu, every affirmation sounds like a repeat, and deep down the question lingers: if imagination creates reality, why am I still searching? People often describe this phase as chasing shadows. Each new workshop, each new video, each new guided meditation feels like a flash of light in the dark. But just as quickly it fades, leaving you in the same dim room of longing. The more they chase, the more elusive fulfillment seems. The search itself begins to feel heavier than the desire it was meant to satisfy. Think of it like someone wandering through a desert with a map that keeps changing. One day, the map says walk north. The next, it says turn east. With every new direction there's hope, but no real arrival. And the cruelest part, the water they crave is already within them, but the endless maps distract them from digging where they stand. Friends and family might even notice. They'll say things like, "You're always into some new thing," or "Didn't you try that already?" And though it stings, there's truth there. The seeker's life can look like a cycle of novelty without transformation. Deep inside, you know there must be something more than being perpetually almost there. At night, lying in bed, the questions echo louder. Why isn't this working? Why do I still feel lack? The mind replays the techniques, the checklists, the teachings, yet peace doesn't come. Instead, there's a quiet frustration, like trying to tune into a radio station that never quite clears. You keep adjusting the dial, hoping the static will finally become music. This is the paradox. The more you search, the more you confirm that you don't yet have. Every new teacher, every new video subtly reinforces the belief that the answer lies outside. And so, the subconscious hears only one thing: I am still searching. And as Neville Goddard once said, assumption ends the search. But until that's understood, the cycle continues. The seeker often tells themselves, I'm growing, I'm learning, I'm getting closer. And in a way, that's true. But it's also a trick of the mind. Progress feels real because you're moving, but movement isn't the same as arrival. The busyness of seeking can disguise itself as transformation, yet nothing inside truly shifts. You're still at the starting line, disguised as progress. And this is where the real turning point begins. The realization that maybe it's not about finding another method, another affirmation, another teacher. Maybe the problem isn't lack of information, but the state of searching itself. Because if assumption ends the search, then continuing to search means something crucial hasn't been assumed. Which brings us to Neville's truth. Neville Goddard was clear and almost radical in his simplicity. Assumption ends the search. He wasn't pointing to endless practices, nor to complicated rituals. His message was startling because it suggested you already hold the key. The very moment you assume the wish fulfilled, the chase stops. Why? Because inwardly you've already arrived. Imagine it this way: a traveler finally reaching the city he's been walking toward for years. The second he steps inside, does he keep wandering in circles, searching for it? Of course not. He simply lives there now. That's what assumption is: stepping into the city of fulfillment within yourself and deciding, this is where I live. Many confuse assumption with daydreaming. They think it's just a fantasy they entertain for comfort. But Neville's truth is deeper. Assumption is not play acting, it's possession. It's not saying, one day I will have this. It's declaring, this is mine now, even if no one else can see it yet. When you assume, there's a noticeable shift. It's not about forcing belief or straining to convince yourself. It feels like slipping into clothes that already fit. You stop asking, when will it happen? And start living from the quiet certainty, it's already mine. That stillness is what tells you the search is over. Think of how you treat your name. You don't wake up each morning wondering, am I really called this? You just assume it without question, without effort. That's how natural assumption feels. The mind isn't busy checking evidence. It simply accepts. Neville pointed to that level of effortless being as the secret doorway. And here's the paradox. When you finally assume, you no longer need proof. Outer confirmation becomes secondary, almost irrelevant. It's like planting a seed. You don't keep digging it up to see if it's sprouting. You water it, you trust it, you let it be. The need to search evaporates because you know the outcome is already unfolding. Neville loved to remind people that imagination creates reality. Not logic, not outer effort, but inner conviction. The moment you occupy the state, reality must conform. It's not about when, it's about alignment. And once aligned, the desperate urge to seek another answer simply disappears. The assumption itself is the destination. Consider the relief of this truth. No more endless scrolling, no more comparing techniques, no more questioning if you're doing it right. When you assume, the burden of searching falls away. Life feels lighter. Instead of chasing, you're allowing. Instead of striving, you're being. That's the kind of freedom seekers spend lifetimes looking for. And here's what's truly transformative. Assumption doesn't just end the search, it redefines identity. You're no longer the seeker, you're the manifester. You're not chasing answers, you're embodying them. It's a quiet revolution inside you, one that changes the way you carry yourself, the way you speak, even the way you think. And yet most people still miss this turning point. They hear Neville's words but keep searching anyway, as if assumption were too simple to be real. But the truth remains. Assumption ends the search. And once you glimpse this, you can't unsee it. The question then becomes, why does searching itself feel so convincing? Searching feels active, even hopeful, but beneath it lies a subtle confession. I don't have it yet. Every time someone says, I need another method, another sign, another book, they're unknowingly reinforcing the very thing they're trying to escape: lack. The subconscious doesn't argue. It simply mirrors back the state it hears. And the state of searching is the state of not yet. Neville Goddard explained this with sharp clarity. Your reality reflects your inner assumptions, not your outer efforts. If the dominant assumption is, I am still looking, then life responds with more looking. It's like standing at the door of abundance, endlessly knocking but never stepping inside. The act of searching itself becomes the lock. Think about how people behave when they've already found something. If a person has the keys in hand, do they still search the house for them? Of course not. Their energy shifts, relaxed, certain, free. Searching only exists when there's an inner belief of absence. And that absence becomes the lens through which everything else is seen. This is why seekers often feel stuck. The more they seek, the further the goal seems. Because in the subconscious language, to seek is to admit separation. To search for love says, I am without love. To search for money says, I am without money. The subconscious doesn't translate intentions, it translates states, and the state of searching is always lack. Picture a person who constantly checks their phone, waiting for a message. Each glance reinforces the silent statement, it hasn't come yet. Even if they're affirming otherwise, the very act of checking contradicts them. That restless, searching energy transmits more powerfully than the words they say. The result? Delay, frustration, and more waiting. The law of assumption explained it in the simplest terms. What you assume as true hardens into fact. If the assumption is, I must keep searching, then the fact becomes endless searching. It's like programming a loop on a computer. The same command repeats until the code is changed. Searching doesn't break the loop, assumption does. This is why seekers often jump from one technique to another. They think the problem is the method, when in reality the problem is the state. It's not that affirmations, visualizations, or meditations don't work. It's that they're being done from the wrong place, from lack, from not yet, from searching, and so results stay out of reach. A powerful analogy is hunger. When you're truly hungry, every action you take, looking at menus, sniffing food, talking about meals, reinforces that you haven't eaten yet. Searching for manifestation is the same. It keeps you circling the hunger of desire, instead of sitting down at the table of fulfillment. And until you shift, the hunger lingers. But here's the tricky part. Searching feels productive. It feels like you're moving forward, reading more, watching more, asking more. Yet productivity without arrival is just busyness, and busyness from lack only multiplies lack. This is the invisible trap many fall into, believing the search itself is progress, when it's actually proof of absence. And once this is understood, everything changes. The endless chase doesn't feel appealing anymore because you see what it really is, a mirror of lack. The urge to search becomes a signal, not a solution. And that signal points towards something deeper, something Neville hinted at when he said assumption isn't wishing or hoping, but being. Assumption is often mistaken for wishful thinking, but it couldn't be more different. Wishing says, I hope it happens someday. Assumption says, it is mine now. That subtle shift changes everything. One keeps you outside the door, the other puts you inside the house. And Neville Goddard made it clear, imagination creates reality only when you live in the end. Think of the difference between a guest and a homeowner. A guest tiptoes, asks permission, and wonders if they belong. A homeowner simply enters, sits, and acts as if the space is theirs, because it is. Assumption is stepping into the role of homeowner in your own life. You stop asking, may I, and start living as I am. Many seekers confuse affirmations with assumption. They repeat words, hoping repetition will convince the subconscious. But assumption isn't about convincing, it's about occupying. You don't chant, I am rich 1,000 times. You carry yourself like someone whose wealth is already true. The feeling becomes the evidence. That's why feeling is the secret. When you wish, your eyes stay on the horizon. When you assume, your feet are already on the land. Wishing keeps you in longing. Assumption rests in fulfillment. That's why searching feels exhausting, while assumption feels restful. It is the energetic difference between not yet and already done. Picture someone who wants love. Wishing looks like waiting for a message, wondering if they'll ever meet the right person. Assumption looks like setting the table for two, walking with the lightness of being cherished, and radiating gratitude for love already here. It's a completely different frequency, and life responds to that frequency. Here's the hidden key. Assumption doesn't ask how. Wishing is obsessed with steps, timelines, and proof. Assumption ignores all that and simply says, it's already settled. That inner certainty reorganizes the outer world to match it. The seeker worries about conditions. The manifester lives from completion. That's why assumption ends the search. The law of assumption explained this simply. The state you occupy dominates your reality. If you assume lack, lack grows. If you assume fulfillment, fulfillment unfolds. It's not effort, it's identity. You don't become rich, you are rich inwardly first. You don't chase love, you are loved inwardly first. That beingness is what manifests. Notice the relief that comes with assumption. No more scrambling for signs, no more restless urgency. Instead, there's quiet joy, a calm detachment. When you truly assume, you stop checking if it's working, because you know it already has. That inner knowing becomes its own reward, even before the outer world shifts. Assumption is different because it changes you at the root. It's not a mask you wear for a few minutes in meditation. It's the self you decide to inhabit every waking moment. And when you do, the world cannot help but reflect it back. As Neville said, you don't get what you want, you get what you assume. And yet, most seekers cling to the comfort of searching, afraid assumption is too bold, too final. But assumption isn't fragile. It's natural. It's the most effortless way of being. Once you see the difference, you realize the trap isn't the desire. It's the endless learning loop, and that's where the next truth comes in, the hidden trap of endless seeking. At first, learning feels empowering. Each new book, each new video sparks a sense of progress. But slowly, a pattern forms. The more one learns, the less one applies. It's as if knowledge becomes a substitute for transformation. People collect teachings like trophies, but never step onto the field to play the game. Think of someone who signs up for every online course, but never finishes any. Their hard drive is full, yet their life remains unchanged. Endless learning can become a comfort zone, a way to avoid the scary part, actually assuming. Because assumption demands responsibility. the courage to live as if it's already done. Neville Goddard often warned against this. He said imagination creates reality, not endless study of imagination. Reading his words without applying them is like staring at a menu and never ordering food. You can memorize every dish, but you'll still go hungry until you actually taste it. The law of assumption explained is nothing until it's lived. There's a subtle addiction in seeking new methods. The thrill of novelty tricks the mind into believing, this time, it will work. But it's like rearranging furniture in a house you never move into. The structure doesn't change, only the decorations. True change comes from assumption, not more searching. The danger is that endless learning looks virtuous. Society praises the student, the researcher, the diligent seeker. But in manifestation, that very diligence can be a mask for fear. Fear of being wrong, fear of disappointment, fear of letting go. So people keep studying, hoping knowledge will protect them from risk. But it never does. Have you noticed how some people can quote Neville Goddard word for word, yet their life shows no evidence of living in the end? That's the trap. They think knowing the theory is the same as embodying the state. But assumption isn't an exam you pass with knowledge. It's an identity you step into with feeling. Endless learning often delays the one thing that matters, choosing. As long as you're learning, you don't have to decide who you are, what you believe, or what you're willing to live as. It's safe, but safe also means stagnant. And the longer you wait, the harder it feels to leap into being. The seeker versus manifester Neville described is exactly this. The seeker collects, compares, evaluates. The manifester assumes. The seeker hopes to be convinced. The manifester knows. The trap of endless learning keeps you on the seeker's side of the line, always preparing, never arriving. And here's the paradox. The more you learn, the more you realize there's always more to learn. It never ends. Like climbing a mountain that stretches higher with every step. The only way to stop is not to conquer the mountain, but to step off the path. To declare, I am already there. That's the power of assumption. This is why Neville insisted, stop searching, start assuming. Because as long as you stay in the cycle of learning, you're reinforcing I don't yet have. The shift comes when you recognize learning has served its purpose, and it's time to embody. And that's when the true secret reveals itself. Feeling is the evidence. Neville Goddard's most famous reminder was simple. Feeling is the secret. He meant that the true proof of your desire is not out there in the world. It's in the inner experience of already having it. When you can feel it as real, even without outer confirmation, you already hold the evidence. The search ends not in facts, but in feeling. Think of a mother who knows her child is safe, even before receiving a call. The feeling reassures her long before any external message arrives. That inner conviction is stronger than any report. In the same way, assumption becomes real the moment you feel it as true. Outer proof becomes an afterthought. People often want guarantees. They ask, how do I know it's working? Neville's answer was always the same. You know by the feeling, not by the bank balance, not by the relationship status, but by the inner sense of being. When you live in the end, your emotional climate shifts first, and that shift is the proof. Imagine an actor fully immersed in their role. For those hours on stage, they aren't pretending. They are the character. Their body responds, their voice changes, their emotions align. That's the power of feeling. The actor doesn't need the audience to clap before believing in the role. They live it first and the world follows. This is why chasing signs is a distraction. Signs are echoes, not origins. They come after, not before. When you're looking for signs, you're secretly saying, I don't yet believe. But when you feel it, signs naturally multiply around you. Like reflections in a mirror you've already stepped in front of. Feeling is the origin, not the result. Consider the difference between thinking and feeling. Thinking says, I want to be wealthy. Feeling says, I already am. The first is a wish, the second is a state. The subconscious doesn't respond to logic, it responds to vibration. And vibration is nothing more than the feeling you're dwelling in moment by moment. Here's the irony. Most seekers chase external results, hoping they'll create the feeling. But manifestation flips the order. The feeling comes first, the results follow. It's like heating a room with a fireplace. You don't wait for warmth before lighting the fire. You light the fire and warmth is inevitable. Feeling is that fire. Neville emphasized that imagination creates reality because imagination produces feeling. When you vividly imagine, the body reacts. The heart quickens, the breath changes, the nervous system aligns. That physical response is your evidence. You don't need to check if it's real. You've already felt it as real within. And when you truly feel it, something magical happens. The urge to search fades. You're no longer restless, no longer chasing, no longer doubting. Gratitude arises naturally, even without outer proof. It's the quiet confidence of someone who knows the seed is planted. They don't need to see the tree yet. The feeling of growth is enough. Feeling, then, is not just a step in the process. It is the process. It's the bridge between imagination and reality, between desire and fulfillment. Once you grasp this, the law of assumption explained itself, because to assume is to feel as if it's already true, and that's where the true practice begins, shifting from seeker to possessor. The real shift happens when you stop acting like the seeker and begin living as the possessor. It's not about doing more techniques, but about changing the place you operate from. Neville Goddard often said, "Live in the end." That means stop reaching toward the desire and instead rest as if it's already yours. That's the turning point. Start with something simple. Close your eyes and imagine a scene that would be true if it were already done. Not the process of getting it, but the proof that you have it. For money, it could be a friend congratulating you. For love, it could be holding someone's hand at dinner. Keep it short, vivid, and emotionally alive. The key is not in the details of the scene, but in the feeling it produces. If the scene makes you feel relief, joy, gratitude, or calm certainty, you've entered the state. That feeling is the evidence, as Neville always reminded us. You don't need fireworks. Even the quiet sense of done is enough to shift everything. Many seekers make the mistake of imagining the process. They visualize working hard, waiting for checks, or longing for love. That keeps them in the state of searching. The possessor skips all that and imagines the result. They don't rehearse the journey. They rehearse the arrival, and that's what makes the subconscious obey. Try this practice. Tonight, as you lie in bed, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, not with strain, not with effort, but with ease. Whisper to yourself, "It is finished." Let your body relax as if the problem no longer exists. That soft surrender is more powerful than hours of restless affirmations. It shifts you instantly. Here's a helpful analogy. A person waiting at a bus stop doesn't imagine walking miles to their destination. They assume the bus will come. They wait with trust, maybe even planning what they'll do once they arrive. That's how assumption feels. You're not imagining the struggle. You're resting in the certainty of arrival. And don't worry if the outer world doesn't change immediately. Neville said persistence is key, but persistence doesn't mean effort. It means dwelling in the state consistently. The more often you return to the scene, the more natural it feels. Soon you won't even be trying to assume. You'll just be living it. Notice how the shift changes your daily behavior. As a seeker, you're restless, checking for signs, doubting yourself. As a possessor, you're calm, confident, and detached. You speak differently, walk differently, even breathe differently. The world feels lighter because you're no longer carrying the weight of not yet. If doubt creeps in, don't fight it. Simply redirect. Close your eyes, return to the scene, and re-enter the feeling. Each time you do this, you reinforce the possessor's state. Over time, it becomes automatic, your new identity. That's when the world outside begins to shift in ways that seem almost miraculous. This is the simple yet profound practice Neville gave us. Stop searching, start assuming, step into the scene, feel it as real, and dwell there. The seeker asks, "When will it come?" The possessor says, "It is here." And as you live that truth, something remarkable happens. You begin to notice the signs of assumption already taking root. The first sign is inner peace. When you've truly assumed, the restless checking fades. You no longer wake up wondering, will it happen today? Instead, there's a calm knowing, like someone who planted a seed and trusts the soil. You don't rush, you don't doubt, you simply live as if it's unfolding. That quiet confidence is unmistakable. Another sign is detachment from results. You stop chasing evidence because you already feel complete inside. Think of someone who's already eaten a good meal. They don't keep scanning menus. In the same way, when you assume, the craving to prove it's working disappears. You're satisfied inwardly regardless of what the outer world shows. Gratitude without outer proof is a powerful indicator. You find yourself saying thank you for things unseen, and it doesn't feel forced. The gratitude flows naturally, as if the reality has already arrived. This is not positive thinking, it's state-based living. You're no longer begging for change, you're celebrating fulfillment. Ease is another clear sign. Life feels lighter. Even challenges don't carry the same weight, because your inner stance has shifted. The struggle of striving is replaced by the rhythm of being. You walk differently, speak differently, and others may even comment, "You seem so relaxed lately." That's assumption at work. There's also a subtle detachment from timelines. The seeker is obsessed with when. The manifester doesn't care. Why? Because in their world, it's already done. Just as a pregnant mother doesn't ask every day if she's still pregnant, she simply lives in expectation. The manifester rests in trust. The timing becomes irrelevant. You may notice synchronicities, little coincidences that seem to wink at you. Numbers, conversations, opportunities. These aren't the cause of assumption, but the echo. They're like reflections in a mirror, showing you the state you're already dwelling in. And because you're detached, you enjoy them without clinging to them. Another sign is clarity in decisions. When you're a seeker, choices feel confusing. Should I do this or that? But as a manifester, you move from inner certainty. You don't overthink, because you already know the end. Actions feel natural, like stepping stones appearing under your feet. The confusion of searching gives way to effortless flow. Relationships change too. When you assume love, you stop chasing it outside yourself. People feel the shift in your presence. Instead of needing validation, you radiate it. And paradoxically, that's when others are drawn to you because you're no longer desperate. You've already claimed what you sought within. Perhaps the most telling sign is that the urge to search begins to vanish. Videos, books, techniques may still interest you, but they don't hold the same grip. You can enjoy them without leaning on them. The endless hunger is gone, replaced by the satisfaction of being. The seeker has quietly transformed into the possessor, even after assuming the old urge to search can sneak back in. It's normal. The mind has practiced seeking for years. The trick is not to panic when it happens. Instead of thinking, "I've lost it," treat the urge as a signal. It's just a gentle reminder to re-enter the state, not a sign that you've failed. Picture it like a craving for junk food after switching to healthier meals. The craving doesn't mean you've undone your progress. It's just an echo of old habits. In the same way, the desire to search is an echo of the seeker state. Recognize it, smile at it, and redirect yourself back into assumption. One of the simplest tools is pausing. When the urge arises, stop everything for a moment. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and recall your chosen scene. Feel it again. Let the emotion of fulfillment wash over you. That small act is enough to snap you back into possession. It's not about fighting the urge, it's about transmuting it. Neville Goddard emphasized that imagination creates reality, not worry or effort. So when the mind tries to drag you back into restlessness, use imagination as your anchor. Ask yourself, if it were already done, how would I feel right now? Then let that feeling replace the search. The urge becomes fuel for re-entry. Another trick is gratitude. Instead of spiraling into doubt, whisper, "Thank you, it is done." Gratitude shifts the energy instantly. It's like flipping a switch from longing to having. And because the subconscious doesn't argue, it takes that gratitude as truth. The more you practice this, the quicker the urge loses its grip. It also helps to remember past wins. Think of times you assumed something small and saw it manifest. A text message, a free coffee, a compliment. Reliving those experiences reminds you that assumption works. The mind can argue with theory, but it can't argue with your own lived proof. This builds trust. Sometimes the urge to search comes disguised as just one more idea. You'll feel tempted to watch another video, read another book, chase another technique. In those moments, pause and ask yourself, am I searching because I don't believe, or am I reaffirming what I already know? That question cuts straight through illusion. Be gentle with yourself. The goal isn't perfection, it's persistence. Neville never said you'd never waver. He said to persist in the assumption until it feels natural. Each time you redirect, you're strengthening a muscle. Over time, the seeker's voice fades, and the possessor's voice becomes your default. A powerful analogy is learning to ride a bike. At first, you wobble, you fall, you doubt. But every time you get back on, balance comes more naturally. Eventually, you don't even think about balance. It's automatic. Assumption works the same way. Redirect enough times and it becomes second nature. So when the urge to search reappears, don't fear it. Use it. Let it guide you back into the feeling of the wish fulfilled. The seeker sees it as a setback. The manifester sees it as practice. And with each practice, the search loses its power. Because the real secret is this: the end of seeking is always the beginning of being. And once you recognize these signs in yourself, something beautiful happens. Trust deepens. You realize the law of assumption explained itself in your own experience. You're living it. You don't need someone else to convince you. You felt it. And from here, the only challenge is what to do when the old urge to search tries to creep back in. Even after assuming, the old urge to search can sneak back in. It's normal. The mind has practiced seeking for years. The trick is not to panic when it happens. Instead of thinking, "I've lost it," treat the urge as a signal. It's just a gentle reminder to re-enter the state, not a sign that you've failed. Picture it like a craving for junk food after switching to healthier meals. The craving doesn't mean you've undone your progress. It's just an echo of old habits. In the same way, the desire to search is an echo of the seeker state. Recognize it, smile at it, and redirect yourself back into assumption. One of the simplest tools is pausing. When the urge arises, stop everything for a moment. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and recall your chosen scene. Feel it again. Let the emotion of fulfillment wash over you. That small act is enough to snap you back into possession. It's not about fighting the urge, it's about transmuting it. Neville Goddard emphasized that imagination creates reality, not worry or effort. So when the mind tries to drag you back into restlessness, use imagination as your anchor. Ask yourself, if it were already done, how would I feel right now? Then let that feeling replace the search. The urge becomes fuel for re-entry. Another trick is gratitude. Instead of spiraling into doubt, whisper, "Thank you. It is done." Gratitude shifts the energy instantly. It's like flipping a switch from longing to having. And because the subconscious doesn't argue, it takes that gratitude as truth. The more you practice this, the quicker the urge loses its grip. It also helps to remember past wins. Think of times you assumed something small and saw it manifest: a text message, a free coffee, a compliment. Reliving those experiences reminds you that assumption works. The mind can argue with theory, but it can't argue with your own lived proof. This builds trust. Sometimes the urge to search comes disguised as just one more idea. You'll feel tempted to watch another video, read another book, chase another technique. In those moments, pause and ask yourself, am I searching because I don't believe, or am I reaffirming what I already know? That question cuts straight through illusion. Be gentle with yourself. The goal isn't perfection, it's persistence. Neville never said you'd never waver. He said to persist in the assumption until it feels natural. Each time you redirect, you're strengthening a muscle. Over time, the seeker's voice fades, and the possessor's voice becomes your default. A powerful analogy is learning to ride a bike. At first, you wobble, you fall, you doubt. But every time you get back on, balance comes more naturally. Eventually, you don't even think about balance. It's automatic. Assumption works the same way. Redirect enough times, and it becomes second nature. So, when the urge to search reappears, don't fear it. Use it. Let it guide you back into the feeling of the wish fulfilled. The seeker sees it as a setback. The manifester sees it as practice. And with each practice, the search loses its power. Because the real secret is this: the end of seeking is always the beginning of being. The greatest relief comes when you finally realize the search was never the answer. All the books, videos, techniques, they were stepping stones, not destinations. Neville Goddard's truth is simple. Assumption ends the search. And when the search ends, something extraordinary begins. You step into being. Being isn't flashy. It doesn't look like constant hustle or dramatic rituals. It feels quiet, steady, and natural, like slipping into a pair of shoes that fit perfectly. Suddenly, life feels aligned, not because the world changed overnight, but because you stopped living as almost and started living as already. The end of seeking feels like exhaling after holding your breath too long. All the tension, all the striving dissolves. You no longer chase signs because you've become the sign. You no longer plead for proof because you embody proof. It's the shift from restless student to serene master without needing a diploma. Imagine someone who's been wandering through a maze for years. One day, instead of searching for the exit, they realize, I'm free to stop walking. The walls don't matter anymore. That's what being is. Realizing freedom was never about finding a door, but about assuming you're already outside. When you live in the end, life reorganizes itself. Opportunities appear, people shift, doors open, But none of that feels surprising. It feels natural, like the outer world simply caught up to your inner reality. The manifester doesn't gasp at miracles. They nod knowingly, because assumption always unfolds. The seeker versus manifester Neville described is crystal clear here. The seeker hunts for meaning. The manifester embodies it. The seeker looks outward, the manifester rests inward. And once you cross that line, you realize the search was just training wheels. Being is the real ride, and it's smoother than you ever imagined. The end of seeking is also the end of doubt, not because you have all the answers, but because you no longer need them. You don't ask when. You live as now. You don't ask how. You live as already. The need for control fades, replaced by trust in the unseen. That's true freedom. Here's the paradox. You find fulfillment not by adding more, but by stopping. By ceasing the restless pursuit, you create space for being. The law of assumption explained this beautifully. To assume is to rest in the truth already chosen. That rest is where creation happens. That rest is where power lives. Being doesn't mean passivity. It means aligned action. You still move, work, and create, but from a different energy. Instead of desperation, it's expression. Instead of chasing, it's unfolding. Every step becomes lighter because you're no longer running from lack. You're walking from fulfillment. And so, the journey ends where it should have started, in you. Not in searching, but in assuming. Not in lack, but in fullness. The moment you accept it within, the search dissolves, and the real life begins. Because the end of seeking is never emptiness. It is, and always was, the doorway to being. So here's the question only you can answer. Will you keep searching, or will you finally assume? Because every time you wait for proof, you're saying it isn't here yet. And every time you choose assumption, you end the waiting game and step into being. What would change in your life if you dared to live today as if it were already done? How much longer will you let the habit of seeking delay the experience of having? Neville Goddard left us a timeless reminder. Imagination creates reality, and feeling is the secret. Now it's your turn to live that truth. If this message spoke to you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way, you won't just keep learning, you'll keep transforming.